The distress signal came through at 0300 hours, and Captain Ji-won Park knew immediately that everything was about to change. She stood on the bridge of the TMS Indomitable, staring at the flickering holographic display. The message played again, and the translated words made her chest tighten. "This is Elder Verath of Thessia Prime. Our world is burning. Our people are dying. We have no weapons, no military, no way to fight back. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We are the Velans, and we do not want to die." The bridge crew stood in silence. Everyone had heard it. Everyone knew what it meant. "Captain, should I respond?" asked the communications officer. Ji-won shook her head slowly. "Not yet. Get me Colonel Kang. Wake him if you have to." 5 minutes later, Colonel Hyun Kang walked onto the bridge in his combat fatigues, his gray hair still messy from sleep. He was a big man with scars on his hands and a face that had seen too many battles. When he looked at Ji-won, his dark eyes were already hard with purpose. "You heard it," Ji-won said. It was not a question. "I heard it," Hyun confirmed. "The Velans. They are the peaceful ones, right? Artists and philosophers. They have no army." "That's right. And the Krethaks are attacking them." Ji-won pulled up another screen showing the enemy fleet. 27 warships. Ground forces already deployed. Intelligence says the Velans will be extinct in less than 48 hours. Hyun studied the display with the eye of a man who had planned 1,000 battles. "We are one ship, one battalion. The Galactic Council will not approve intervention." "I know," Ji-won said quietly. "After the Frontier War, they made it very clear. Humans are too violent, too unpredictable. We are supposed to stay in our space and leave galactic affairs to the civilized species. Civilized species who are letting an entire race die because they do not want to fight." Hyun's voice was bitter. He turned to face her fully. "Captain Park, what are your orders?" Ji-won looked around the bridge. Her crew was watching her. Young faces and old faces. Humans from Earth, Mars, the Belt, the colony worlds. They had all volunteered for deep space patrol, knowing it was boring work, knowing they would probably never see action. Now, action was calling, and it was illegal. "I want to hear from the crew first," Ji-won said. "Everyone, not just the officers. This decision affects all of us." She activated the ship-wide intercom. "This is Captain Park. By now, everyone has heard the distress call from Thessia Prime. The Velans are under attack and facing extinction. The Galactic Council has not authorized any intervention. If we go to help them, we will be violating direct orders. We will face court-martial. We might lose everything." She paused, feeling the weight of what she was about to say. "But we are the only ship in range. We are the only ones who can help them. I am putting it to a vote. Everyone on this ship gets one vote. We go, or we stay. You have 10 minutes to decide." The bridge went quiet. Hyun stood beside her, his arms crossed. "You are a good captain," he said softly. "Not many would risk their career like this." "I cannot make this choice alone," Ji-won replied. "This is bigger than me." The 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. When the results came in, Ji-won read them with her heart pounding. Of the 423 crew members aboard the Indomitable, 423 had voted to go. Unanimous. "Well then," Ji-won said, and she felt something fierce and bright burning in her chest. "Let's go save some aliens! Helm, set course for Thessia Prime. Maximum speed." "Yes, Captain." The ship hummed as the engines powered up to full. Hyun headed for the door, then stopped. "I need to prepare my Marines. We will be ready for deployment in 2 hours." "Colonel," Ji-won called after him. "Thank you." He smiled, and for a moment he looked younger. "Thank you, Captain, for giving us something worth fighting for." Down in the Marine Bay, Hyun gathered his officers. Lieutenant Hana Song was there, the best pilot in the battalion. Sergeant Yuna Choi arrived with her squad leaders. Corporal Taeyang Kim, the young medic, stood at the back with his medical kit already packed. "Listen up," Yun said, his voice carrying across the bay. "We are going into a hot zone. The Krethaks have orbital superiority and ground forces dug in. The Velans are civilians with no combat training. Our job is simple. Get down there, establish a secure zone, and hold it until we can evacuate as many Velans as possible." "Sir, intel says the Krethaks outnumber us 50-1, said one of the squad leaders. Hyun shrugged. "Then it is a fair fight. The Krethaks have never faced human Marines before. They think we are primitive because we still use kinetic weapons. They think we are weak because we show emotion. They are about to learn differently." Yuna stepped forward. She was a small woman, but she could outshoot anyone in the battalion. "Colonel, what are the rules of engagement?" "Standard ROE," Hyun said firmly. "We protect civilians. We eliminate hostile forces. Anyone who surrenders gets treated according to the Terran military code. We are Marines, not murderers. But anyone who threatens those Velans..." His voice went cold. "Anyone who threatens them answers to us." The Marines began preparing their gear. Drop pods were loaded. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Taeyang organized his medical supplies, knowing he would need every bandage, every stimulant, every piece of equipment he had. Hana ran flight simulations, calculating the best approach vector through the Krethaks' orbital defenses. The numbers did not look good. She had maybe a 60% chance of getting her dropship through. She decided not to tell anyone that. 6 hours later, the Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the HFY Prime system. The main view screen showed the planet below, beautiful and blue, with ugly black scars where the bombardment had hit. Jiwon opened a channel to the Krethaks fleet. "This is Captain Jiwon Park of the Terran destroyer Indomitable. You are hereby ordered to cease your attack on HFY Prime and withdraw from this system." The response came quickly, full of clicking sounds and harsh laughter. When the translator finished, the Krethaks commander's words were clear. "One human ship dares to challenge the Dominion. You are either brave or stupid. Leave now or be destroyed with the Velans." Jiwon smiled coldly. "We gave you a chance. Colonel Kang, deploy your Marines." In the Marine Bay, red lights flashed. Hyun sealed his helmet and stepped into his drop pod. Around him, 99 other Marines did the same. "Listen up, Marines," he said over the comm. "Those people down there called for help. They are scared. They are dying, and we are about to show them that humans answer the call, no matter what. Ura! Ura!" The response thundered through the comm system. The drop pods launched, shooting through space toward the planet below. The Krethaks fleet tried to intercept them, but the pods were small and fast, their shields flaring as they absorbed hits. On HFY Prime, Elder Vareth huddled with his people in the ruins of their capital city. He had given up hope. His distress call had gone unanswered. Soon the Krethaks would finish them. Then the sky began to burn. Pods fell through the atmosphere like falling stars, leaving trails of fire. They hit the ground with thunderous impacts, sending up clouds of dust and smoke. The hatches blew open, and from the smoke, the Terran Marines emerged. Hyun Kang was the first one out, his rifle up, his eyes scanning for targets. Behind him came his Marines, spreading out in practiced formations. They moved fast, covering ground like predators. The Krethaks had been hunting Velans in the ruins. Now they stopped, staring at these new arrivals. The humans were smaller than Krethaks warriors, but there was something about the way they moved that made the Krethaks hesitate. That hesitation was fatal. Yuna spotted a Krethak squad moving toward a group of Velan civilians. She did not hesitate. Her rifle barked 3 times, and 3 Krethaks fell. "Contact!" she shouted. "Engaging hostiles!" The battle for HFY Prime had begun. The city was a nightmare of broken buildings and burning streets. Smoke hung in the air like a thick blanket, making it hard to see more than 50 meters ahead. Yuna led her squad through the ruins, her rifle steady in her hands. Behind her, 5 Marines moved in tight formation, covering every angle. "Movement, 3 o'clock," whispered Private Minho Park. Yuna saw them. 3 Krethax warriors, each nearly 2 meters tall, with thick armor plating and energy weapons. They were dragging a group of Velan civilians from a collapsed building. The Velans were small and slender, with pale blue skin and large eyes. They looked terrified. "On my mark," Yuna said softly. 3, 2, 1, mark." Her squad opened fire. The noise was deafening in the ruined street. The Krethax never had a chance. They fell before they could even raise their weapons. The Velans screamed and cowered, expecting to die. Instead, Yuna lowered her rifle and approached slowly. She pulled off her helmet so they could see her face. "It is okay," she said, speaking slowly. "We are here to help. Do you understand?" One of the Velans, a young female with silver markings on her face, looked up at Yuna with wide eyes. You came. We called for help, and you came." "Yes," Yuna said simply. "Can you walk? We need to get you somewhere safe." The young Velan nodded. Her name was Silith, Yuna would learn later. "There are more of us. In the buildings, hiding from the hunters." "Show us," Yuna said. For the next hour, Yuna's squad moved through the ruins, finding Velans and leading them to the rally point that Colonel Kang had established. The Krethax tried to stop them. It did not go well for the Krethax. Across the city, similar scenes played out. Human Marines were everywhere, moving fast, hitting hard. The Krethax had numbers, but the humans had something the Krethax did not understand. They had fury. Every dead Velan made the humans fight harder. Every crying child made them more dangerous. The Krethax fought for conquest and glory. The humans fought like someone had insulted their family. Corporal Taeyang Kim set up his medical station in what used to be a school. Wounded Velans lay on makeshift beds, their blue blood staining the floor. Taeyang moved between them with quick efficiency, applying bandages, giving injections, saving lives. A Marine carried in another wounded Velan, this one badly burned. "Doc, this one is critical." Taeyang took one look and started working. His hands moved fast, cutting away burned clothing, applying synthetic skin, starting an IV line. The Velan's breathing was shallow. Too shallow. "Stay with me," Taeyang said, more to himself than to the unconscious alien. "You did not survive this long just to die now." He worked for 20 minutes straight, not stopping, not slowing down. When the Velan's breathing finally stabilized, Taeyang allowed himself a moment to breathe. Then another wounded Marine was brought in, and he started again. Above the city, Lieutenant Hana Song flew her dropship through hell. Krethax gunships tried to shoot her down, but Hana flew like the ship was part of her body. She dove between buildings, rolled through explosions, pushed the engines beyond their limits. "Hana, you have 3 bogeys on your tail," her co-pilot warned. "I see them," Hana said calmly. She pulled the ship into a climb that would have killed most pilots from the G-forces. At the top of the climb, she cut the engines and let the ship flip backward. Now she was facing her pursuers. "Gotcha!" Her guns spoke. 2 of the Krethax ships exploded. The third tried to run. Hana did not let it get far. "Ground teams, this is Hana. Airspace is clear for the next 5 minutes. Get your wounded to the rally point now." On the ground, Colonel Hyun Kang coordinated the operation from a bombed-out government building. He had turned it into a command post, with communication equipment and tactical displays showing the position of every squad. "Colonel, we have secured Sector 7, reported one squad leader. "Found 200 Velans hiding in the underground tunnels." "Good. Get them to the rally point." "What is your squad status?" 2 wounded, sir. Nothing serious." "Understood. Next objective is Sector 9. Reports say there is a large group trapped there. Hyun marked the map and assigned 3 more squads to the sector. The operation was going better than expected. In 3 hours, they had secured a zone roughly 2 kilometers across and found over 10,000 Velen survivors. But the Krethaks were adapting. Their initial surprise was wearing off. Now they were bringing in their heavy units. "Colonel, we have incoming," called the sensor operator. "Looks like armor. A lot of armor." Hyun pulled up the display and frowned. 30 Krethaks tanks were moving toward their position, supported by infantry. That was a problem. His Marines had anti-tank weapons, but not enough for 30 tanks. "Get me Captain Park," he said. On the Indomitable, Jiwon was having problems of her own. The Krethaks fleet had recovered from their surprise and were now trying to box her in. Her ship was fast, but 27 against 1 was not good odds. "Captain, Colonel Kang is requesting fire support," said the communications officer. Jiwon looked at the tactical display. The Krethaks fleet was between her and the planet. To provide fire support, she would have to get past them. That meant flying straight into their formation. "Helm, plot a course through the enemy fleet. Weapons, charge all railguns. We are going in." Her crew looked at her like she was crazy. Maybe she was. But those Marines down there were counting on her. The Indomitable accelerated toward the Krethaks fleet. The enemy ships opened fire, and space lit up with energy beams and missiles. Jiwon's ship shook with impacts, but she kept going. "Return fire," she ordered. The Indomitable's railguns fired. Solid metal slugs, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, punched through Krethaks' shields like they were paper. 3 enemy ships exploded. A 4th tumbled out of formation, venting atmosphere. The Indomitable flew through the gap, taking more hits. Alarms blared across the bridge. "Hull breach on deck 3, shields at 40%. "Keep going," Jiwon shouted. "Get me in orbit over the Colonel's position." They made it, barely. The Indomitable took up position over Thessia Prime and aimed her weapons at the planet below. "Colonel Kang, this is Captain Park. Tell me where you want the fire support." On the ground, Hyun smiled grimly as he marked the enemy armor formation on his tablet. "Sending coordinates now. Danger close, Captain. Real close." "Understood. Fire mission incoming." The Indomitable's railguns adjusted their aim. Then they fired. The rounds came down from orbit like the fist of an angry god. They hit the Krethaks armor formation with devastating force. The tanks did not just explode. They vaporized. The shockwave knocked Marines and Velens off their feet. When the dust cleared, the entire enemy formation was gone. Just smoking craters remained. Yuna helped Silith stand up. The young Velen was shaking. What was that?" "That," Yuna said, "was our ship saying hello." Elder Vareth had been watching the humans from a distance, too shocked to do much else. He was a philosopher, a thinker. Violence went against everything his people believed, but watching the humans fight, he understood something new. Sometimes, violence in defense of life was not wrong. It was necessary. He approached Colonel Kang carefully. The human was tall and scarred and looked like he could break Varoth in half, but when Kang turned to face him, his expression softened. "Elder Varoth," Kang said, "we received your message." "You came," Varoth said, his voice full of wonder. "You are one ship. We are strangers to you, yet you came. You asked for help," Kang said simply. "That is enough." "Why?" Varoth asked. "Why would you risk so much for us?" Kang looked around at his Marines, at the Velens they were protecting, at the ruins of a once beautiful city. "Because we are human," he said finally, "and humans do not leave people to die, not if we can help it." Varoth felt something he had not felt in days, hope. "How long can you hold?" he asked. Kang checked his tactical display. More Krethaks forces were moving toward their position. The enemy was angry now. They would throw everything they had at the humans. "We will hold as long as we need to," Kang said. "Captain Park has called for reinforcements. They are 3 days out." 3 days, Varath repeated. It seemed like forever. 3 days, Kang confirmed. He placed a hand on Varath's shoulder. "We will hold. I promise you that." As night fell over Thessia Prime, the humans dug in. They built barricades from rubble, set up defensive positions, organized the Velans into safe zones. Tai Yang kept working in his makeshift hospital. Hana and the other pilots maintained their ships, knowing tomorrow would bring more fighting. And in orbit, the Indomitable circled like a protective guardian, damaged but defiant, ready to rain fire on anyone who threatened the people below. The Krethax War Prime Calthor watched all of this from his flagship and felt something he had not felt in many years: doubt. These humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to break easily. Instead, they were winning. He opened a communication channel to his commanders. "Bring in everything we have. I want those humans dead before their reinforcements arrive." The real battle was about to begin. Day 2 began with fire falling from the sky. The Krethax had stopped being cautious. They threw everything they had at the human positions. Missiles streaked down from orbit. Artillery shells rained on the defensive lines. Wave after wave of Krethax infantry charged the barricades, and the Marines held. Yuna's squad was positioned on the eastern perimeter. She had not slept in 30 hours, but she did not feel tired. Adrenaline and determination kept her going. Beside her, Silith crouched behind the barricade, holding a rifle that Yuna had taught her to use. "Remember," Yuna said, "aim for center mass, squeeze the trigger, do not pull, and stay behind cover." Silith nodded, her large eyes serious. "I understand." When the Krethax came, they came in force. Hundreds of warriors, screaming their war cries, charging across the open ground. Yuna opened fire, and her squad followed. The noise was incredible. The Krethax fell, but more kept coming. "They are not stopping," shouted Minho. "Then neither do we," Yuna shouted back. She changed magazines smoothly, aimed, fired. Changed magazines again. Her rifle was hot in her hands, but she kept shooting. Silith fired her weapon, and a Krethax warrior stumbled. She stared in shock at what she had done. Then another Krethax raised his weapon toward a wounded Marine, and Silith fired again. This time, she did not hesitate. The attack broke against the human lines like water against rock. The Krethax retreated, leaving their dead behind. Yuna did a quick count. Her squad had held, but ammunition was getting low. "Yuna," said Minho quietly, "at this rate we will run out of bullets before they run out of soldiers." Yuna knew he was right, but she also knew they had no choice. "Then we use bayonets," she said. "We do not give up." "Not while those civilians need us." In the medical station, Taeyang worked without stopping. The wounded kept coming. Marines with bullet wounds, Velans with burns, everyone needing his help. "Doc, I need you to look at Sergeant Lee," a Marine said, helping a wounded soldier through the door. Taeyang finished bandaging a Velan's arm and moved to the sergeant. The wound was bad, but not fatal if treated quickly. His hands moved with practiced skill, cleaning the wound, stopping the bleeding, injecting painkillers. "Am I going to make it, Doc?" the sergeant asked. "You are going to be fine," Taeyang said firmly. "But you need to rest for at least 6 hours." 6 hours? We are in the middle of a battle. "And you will be no good to anyone if you bleed to death," Taeyang said. 6 hours. "That is an order from your medic." The sergeant smiled weakly. "Yes, sir." Above them, in orbit, Captain Jiwon Park faced an impossible situation. The Krethax fleet had her surrounded. 23 ships remained after the initial fighting, and they all wanted her dead. Commander Daehyun Lee, her tactical officer, studied the displays with a frown. "Captain, They are trying to box us in. If they succeed, we will not be able to provide fire support to the ground teams." "Then we do not let them box us in," Jiwan said. She activated ship-wide communications. "All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. This is going to get rough." She turned to her helmsman. "Take us straight at their flagship, full speed." The bridge crew stared at her. The helmsman found his voice first. "Captain, that is suicide." "That is an order," Jiwan said calmly. "Trust me." The Indomitable accelerated toward the Krethax flagship. Every enemy ship opened fire. Energy beams and missiles filled space. The human destroyer's shields flared and failed. Armor plating vaporized. Sections of the hull broke open to vacuum. "Shields down! Multiple hull breaches!" someone shouted. "Keep going," Jiwan ordered. The Krethax fleet expected the human ship to break off or explode. They did not expect what happened next. At the last possible moment, the Indomitable fired her emergency thrusters and spun sideways. Her rail guns, already charged and aimed, fired at point-blank range. The Krethax flagship died. The railgun slugs punched through its hull from one side to the other. Secondary explosions tore the massive ship apart. "Emergency jump!" Jiwan shouted. "Now!" The Indomitable's faster-than-light drive engaged. It was insanely dangerous to jump while inside a gravity well, but the ship vanished from Krethax sensors before they could react. 3 seconds later, it reappeared on the other side of the planet. On the Krethax command channel, confusion erupted. Their flagship was destroyed. The human ship had disappeared. How did they jump inside the gravity well? That was supposed to be impossible. War Prime Calthor, commanding from a secondary ship now, felt his confidence crack. These humans did not fight like anyone else. They broke every rule. They did impossible things. And they were winning. "All ships, regroup," he ordered. "We need a new strategy." But Jiwan was not done. She had studied the Krethax formations, and she had noticed something. They were good at fleet actions, at organized battles, but they were not good at chaos. "Daehyun, I need you to calculate micro-jumps," she said. "We are going to hit them. Jump. Hit them again. Jump. Keep them confused." "Captain, our jump drive is not designed for that," Daehyun protested. "It could fail." "Everything could fail," Jiwan said. "But if we do nothing, those Marines die. Give me the calculations." For the next 4 hours, the Indomitable became a ghost. It would appear, fire a devastating barrage, and disappear before the Krethax could respond. It hit them from above, from below, from impossible angles. Each time, more Krethax ships died. The human ship was falling apart. Systems failed one after another. Fires burned in 3 different sections. Half the crew was injured, but they kept fighting. Meanwhile, on the planet, Colonel Kang received word that the Galactic Council had finally responded to the situation. A formal communication came through, and Kang read it with growing anger. The Council condemned the human intervention. They demanded the Indomitable withdraw immediately. They threatened sanctions against Earth. They said humanity was breaking galactic law. Kang deleted the message. "Sir, should we inform the crew?" asked his communications officer. "No," Kang said. "They do not need to know right now. They need to focus on the mission." But someone else read the message. Ambassador Sora Han, watching events unfold from Earth, stood before the Galactic Council with fire in her eyes. "You condemn us?" she said, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. "You condemn us for saving lives. The Velans called for help. They begged for help. And what did you do? Nothing. You sat here in your comfortable chambers and debated policy while an entire species faced extinction." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Sora continued. "We did not ask for your permission to do the right thing. We will never ask for permission to do the right thing. You call us violent, unpredictable, dangerous. Maybe we are. But we are also the only ones who answered the call. Remember that." She walked out of the chamber, leaving shocked silence behind her. Back on Thessia Prime, the second day ended with both sides exhausted. The Krethax had lost thousands of soldiers and 6 more ships. The humans had lost 30 Marines and were running critically low on ammunition and medical supplies. Elder Verath walked among the human defensive positions, bringing food and water to the Marines. They had saved his people, and now the Velans did what they could to help. He found Colonel Kang standing at an observation post, looking out at the enemy positions. The human looked tired, more than tired, exhausted. "Colonel," Verath said softly, "you should rest." "I will rest when the reinforcements arrive," Kang said. 2 more days. "Will we survive 2 more days?" Kang was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "We will. We have to." Verath looked at this strange, violent, wonderful species. "Why do you do this? Truly? Your own government has condemned your actions. You face punishment when this is over. Why keep fighting?" Kang turned to face him. "Do you know what my grandmother told me when I was young? She said that the measure of a person is not what they do when it is easy. It is what they do when it is hard, when it costs them something." He gestured at the ruins around them. "This costs us everything, our careers, maybe our freedom, maybe our lives. But if we ran away, if we left you to die because saving you was inconvenient, what would that make us?" "Human," Verath said softly. "It would make you human." "No," Kang said firmly. "It would make us cowards. Being human means we have a choice. We can walk away, or we can stand and fight. We choose to fight. Every time." That night, Silith asked Yuna why humans were so different from other species. Yuna thought about it while cleaning her rifle. "I think," she said slowly, "it is because we know how to be afraid and do things anyway. Every human here is scared. We are outnumbered, outgunned, far from home. We should not win this fight." "But we are not fighting to win. We are fighting because you needed help. Does that make sense?" Silith nodded. "You fight not for victory, but for purpose." "Yes," Yuna said, surprised at how well the young Velan understood. "Exactly that." On the 3rd morning, the Krethax came with everything they had left. This was the final push. Either the humans would break, or the Krethax would. There was no middle ground anymore. War Prime Kalthor addressed his forces. "These humans have embarrassed us long enough. Today we end this. Today we show the galaxy that the Dominion cannot be defied. Attack!" 10,000 Krethax warriors advanced. 50 tanks, gunships filled the sky. Colonel Kang watched them come and opened his communication channel to all Marines. "This is it. This is what we trained for. Remember why we are here. Remember who we protect, and remember that we are Terran Marines. We do not break. We do not run. We hold the line. For the Velans, for each other, for humanity." The Marines answered with a single word, shouted by 90 voices. "Ura!" The final battle had begun. The attack came at dawn, and it did not stop. Yuna fired her rifle until the barrel glowed red. She dropped the magazine, slammed in a new one, and kept firing. Around her, her squad did the same. The Krethax were everywhere, climbing over their own dead to reach the barricades. "Grenade out!" someone shouted. The explosion bought them a few seconds. Only a few. Then the Krethax were back, pressing forward with desperate fury. Silith fought beside Yuna now, no longer hesitant. She had learned to reload quickly, to aim steady, to keep moving. She was terrified. But she did not run. The humans had taught her that fear was okay. Running was not. "Yuna, we need to fall back!" Minho shouted over the noise. "No!" Yuna shouted back. "If we fall back, they break through to the civilians. We hold here!" A Krethax warrior made it to the barricade. Yuna did not have time to reload. She swung her rifle like a club, hitting the warrior in the face. He stumbled. She drew her knife and finished him. The fighting was brutal and close now. No room for tactics, just survival. Marines fought with guns, knives, fists, anything they had. The Krethaks had expected to overwhelm them. Instead, they found that wounded humans fought harder than fresh ones. Lieutenant Hana Song flew her dropship through a storm of anti-aircraft fire. Her co-pilot was wounded. Her left engine was failing. Her shields were gone. But there were Marines on the ground who needed ammunition, and she was going to deliver it. "Hana, you cannot make that landing," her co-pilot gasped. "Watch me," Hana said. She came in fast and low, the ship shaking with damage. Krethak's gunships chased her, firing constantly. She did not care. The landing zone was ahead, marked by burning flares. The ship hit the ground hard, skidding across broken pavement. The cargo bay doors opened before they stopped moving. Marines rushed to unload ammunition crates, working fast, while Hana kept the engines running. 30 seconds, she shouted. "Move, move, move!" 28 seconds later, they were airborne again. A Krethak's missile hit her tail section as she climbed. The ship lurched, alarms screaming. Hana fought the controls, coaxing the damaged ship to stay in the air. She made it 3 kilometers before the engines failed completely. The ship went down in an abandoned industrial district, hitting the ground and sliding through empty buildings. When it finally stopped, Hana was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but she was alive. "Everyone out," she ordered. "This ship is done." Her crew climbed out of the wreckage. 5 people, all injured. They were deep in Krethak's controlled territory, with no radio and no way home. Hana checked her pistol and looked at the smoke rising from the human positions in the distance. "Looks like we are walking back," she said. "Stay close and stay quiet. Let's go." At the command post, Colonel Kang received the news that Hana was down. He marked her position on the map and assigned a rescue squad. But there were no spare squads. Everyone was fighting. "Sir, we have a problem," said his tactical officer. "The eastern line is close to breaking. Yuna's squad is almost out of ammunition." Kang studied the map. If the eastern line broke, the Krethaks would pour through and reach the civilian shelters. Thousands would die. "Pull Squad 7 from the northern sector," he ordered. "Send them to reinforce the east." "Sir, that will leave the north weak." "I know. But the main attack is coming from the east. We bet everything on holding there." It was a gamble. Everything in this battle was a gamble. Kang's radio crackled. "Colonel, this is Captain Park. I have bad news." Kang closed his eyes. He did not need more bad news. "Go ahead, Captain." "My ship is dying," Jiwan said bluntly. "We have taken too much damage. The jump drive is offline. Main power is at 30%. I can give you 1 more fire support mission, maybe 2. After that, the Indomitable will not be combat effective." "Understood," Kang said. "Thank you for everything you have done, Captain." "Colonel," Jiwan said, and her voice was soft now. "We heard about the council. They are ordering us to abandon you. I want you to know my crew voted again. Unanimous. We stay until the end." Kang felt something tight in his chest. "Tell your crew they are the bravest people I have ever known." "I will. Park out." The battle raged through the day. Taiyang's medical station was overwhelmed. Wounded covered every surface. He moved between them like a machine, triage deciding who he could save and who he could not. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. A young Marine, barely 20 years old, grabbed his arm. "Doc, am I going to die?" Taiyang looked at the wound. It was bad, very bad. He could work on this Marine, but that would mean 3 others would die while he did. The math was cruel and clear. "No," Taiyang lied. He injected the strongest painkiller he had. "You are going to be fine. Just rest." The Marine smiled and closed his eyes. Taiyang moved to the next patient, hating himself, saving who he could. Elder Verath organized the Velans who could not fight into support roles. They carried ammunition, brought food and water, helped with the wounded. The Velans were not warriors, but they learned that there were many ways to fight. A group of Velan engineers approached Colonel Kang with an idea. "Colonel, we have been studying your defensive positions. We can improve them. We are not soldiers, but we are good at building things." Kang looked at their plans. They were good. Very good. "Do it. Whatever you need, you have." The Velans worked through the night, reinforcing barricades, creating new firing positions, digging trenches. They worked alongside human engineers, sharing knowledge, learning from each other. War Prime Kalthor watched his forces die and felt fury burning in his chest. How were these humans still fighting? They should be dead. They should be broken. But every report said the same thing. The humans hold. "Bring in the siege artillery," he ordered. "Level their positions. I do not care about the Velan civilians anymore. Kill them all." The Krethax siege guns were massive weapons, designed to destroy fortified positions. 6 of them rolled into position on the hills overlooking the human defensive line. Each gun could fire shells the size of a small car. When they opened fire, the ground itself shook. The shells came down like falling buildings, exploding with terrible force. Buildings collapsed, barricades vaporized, Marines died, buried under tons of rubble. Yuna's position took a direct hit. The explosion threw her through the air. She hit the ground hard, ears ringing, vision blurry. Around her, her squad was scattered. Some were moving, some were not. "Report!" She tried to shout, but could barely hear her own voice. Minho crawled to her side, bleeding from a dozen cuts. 3 dead, 2 wounded. We cannot hold here, Yuna." She looked at the position. He was right. The barricade was gone. The Krethax were already advancing, seeing the gap. "Fall back to the secondary line," she ordered. "Help the wounded. Move!" They retreated 50 meters to a new position, leaving their dead behind. It hurt to leave them, but the living needed her more. Colonel Kang saw the eastern line collapsing and made a decision. "Captain Park, I need fire support on the siege guns. Coordinates sending now." "Colonel, I told you I only have 1 or 2 shots left." "I know. This is worth it. Take out those guns." The Indomitable, barely holding together, adjusted its orbit. Its railguns charged one final time. The ship shuddered with the effort, power failing across multiple systems. "Fire," Jiwan ordered quietly. The railgun slugs fell from orbit with devastating accuracy. All 6 siege guns exploded in sequence, turning the hilltop into a crater. The Krethax artillery was gone, but so was the Indomitable's ability to fight. "All weapons offline," reported the tactical officer. "Power failing. We are done, Captain." Jiwan nodded slowly. "Take us to minimum safe orbit and shut down everything non-essential. We did what we could." On the ground, the Marines cheered when the siege guns died, but the celebration was short. The Krethax were still coming, and reinforcements were still 2 days away. That night, Hana and her crew reached the human lines. They had walked 20 kilometers through enemy territory, fought through 3 Krethax patrols, and lost 1 crew member. But they made it. Hana found Colonel Kang and reported. He looked at her with respect. "That was one hell of a walk, Lieutenant." "Yes, sir. Permission to get back in the fight?" "Granted, but not in a ship. I need every rifle I can get." Hana picked up a rifle from a fallen Marine. "Works for me, sir." Yuna found Silith sitting alone, staring at the bodies being covered with sheets. The young Velan was crying silently. "First time seeing death?" Yuna asked gently. "We are a peaceful people," Silith said. "We do not believe in killing. But I killed today. Many times. Does that make me evil?" Yuna sat beside her. "No, it makes you someone who protected the innocent. There is a difference between murder and defense. You did not seek this fight, but when it came, you stood up. That takes courage. I am scared all the time, Silith admitted. So am I, Yuna said. Every human here is scared, but we fight anyway. That is what makes us strong, not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Silith leaned against Yuna, and Yuna put an arm around her. They sat like that for a long time, human and alien, finding comfort in shared grief. On the dawn of the final day, Colonel Kong gathered his remaining officers. 63 Marines had died. Another 40 were too wounded to fight. That left fewer than 50 combat-effective troops to face 10,000 Krethaks. Our reinforcements arrive in 12 hours, he said. We need to hold for 12 more hours. Nobody spoke. The math was impossible. Everyone knew it. I will not order anyone to stay, Kang continued. Captain Park's ship is in orbit. She can evacuate us. We can leave the Velans and save ourselves. Hana stood up. With respect, sir, that is not an option. Yuna nodded. We came here to save these people. We do not leave them now. One by one, every officer agreed. They would hold, or they would die trying. Kang felt pride burning in his chest. Then we make our stand here. Every bullet counts. Every second counts. And when our people arrive, I want them to find us still fighting. The Krethaks came at dawn. One final massive assault. Everything they had thrown at the human positions. And the humans met them with fire and fury and steel. The sun rose on the third day, and Colonel Hyun Kang knew it might be the last sunrise he ever saw. His defensive line was barely holding. Ammunition was almost gone. Medical supplies were exhausted. His Marines had been fighting for 3 days straight with almost no sleep. They were running on willpower alone. "Contact!" someone shouted. "Here they come again!" The Krethaks charged across the broken ground, thousands of warriors screaming their war cries. This was their final push. They knew the humans were at their breaking point. Yuna fired her last magazine. When it was empty, she fixed her bayonet. Around her, other Marines did the same. They had bullets for maybe 2 more minutes. After that, it would be knives and fists. "Stay close," she shouted to her squad. "We hold together." The Krethaks hit the defensive line like a wave hitting rocks. Marines fought hand to hand, bayonets flashing in the morning light. Taiyang left his medical station and picked up a rifle from a fallen soldier. He had always been a healer, but today he would fight. War Prime Kalthor watched from his command ship with satisfaction. The humans were finally breaking. Another 10 minutes, and it would be over. He would return home victorious, and these troublesome humans would be a cautionary tale. Then space itself seemed to tear open. 12 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, appearing in perfect formation. 3 massive carriers began launching fighter craft. Destroyer escorts moved to engage the Krethaks fleet, and from the center of the formation, a battleship twice the size of any other vessel opened its gun ports. "This is Admiral Jinwoo Seo of the Terran Third Fleet," came the transmission. "All Krethaks forces are ordered to cease hostilities immediately and withdraw from Thessia Prime. You have 30 seconds to comply. Failure to comply will result in your destruction." War Prime Kalthor stared at the display in shock. Where did they come from? How did they arrive so fast? "Sir, should we engage?" asked his tactical officer. Kalthor looked at the Terran fleet, looked at his own damaged, depleted forces, made the only logical choice. "All ships withdraw to jump distance. Prepare to retreat." But Admiral Seo was not feeling merciful. "Too late. You attacked humans under my protection. You killed my Marines. There are consequences for that." The Terran battleship, the TMS Vengeance, opened fire. Its main guns could crack a planet's crust. Against starships, they were devastating. 3 Krethaks vessels exploded in the first salvo. The rest of the Krethak's fleet tried to run. The Terran destroyers hunted them down. Within 20 minutes, the Krethak's fleet was destroyed or scattered. War Prime Calthor's ship was one of the few to escape into faster-than-light travel, and only because Admiral CO let it go. "Let him run," CO said. "Let him tell his people what happens when you anger humanity." On the ground, Colonel Kang heard the roar of engines and looked up. The sky was filled with drop pods, hundreds of them, falling like rain. Fresh Marines hit the ground and immediately joined the fight. General Minji An was the first out of her pod. She was a legend in the Terran Marines, a veteran of 20 campaigns. She found Colonel Kang's position and approached with her command staff. "Colonel Kang," she said with a salute, "the 3rd Marine Division reports for duty. Where do you need us?" Kang, exhausted and bleeding, could not help but smile. "General, we have about 10,000 Krethak's warriors who need to be convinced to leave. Think you can handle that?" "Consider it done," Minji said. She turned to her division. "Marines, we came here to finish what these brave soldiers started. Show the Krethak's what happens when they pick a fight with humanity." 3,000 fresh Marines swept across the battlefield. The Krethak's, already demoralized by the destruction of their fleet, broke and ran. Some tried to fight. They died quickly. Others threw down their weapons and surrendered. Yuna lowered her rifle, her hands shaking. It was over. They had held. They had actually held. Silith ran to her, crying with joy and relief. "We survived! Yuna, we survived!" Yuna hugged the young Velen, too tired to speak. Around them, Marines were collapsing where they stood, finally able to rest. Medics from the reinforcements rushed to help Taiyang with the wounded. Lieutenant Hana sat down on a piece of rubble and just breathed. Someone handed her water. She drank it slowly, savoring the taste of victory. The war was over. But the consequences were just beginning. 3 days later, a formal hearing was held aboard the Vengeance. Colonel Kang, Captain Park, and the surviving officers of the Indomitable stood before a military tribunal. They were charged with violating orders, unauthorized military action, and breaking the Terran Galactic Non-Intervention Treaty. The charges carried the possibility of court-martial and imprisonment. Admiral CO chaired the hearing. He read through the charges in a formal voice. Then he set down the documents and looked at the accused. "I have reviewed the evidence," he said. "I have read the reports. I have spoken with the Velen survivors and seen what you accomplished." He paused. "What you did was completely against regulations." Kang stood straight, ready to accept punishment. "It was also," Seo continued, "the finest example of Terran values I have seen in 30 years of service. You saved 43,000 Velen lives. You held against impossible odds. You showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of when we act with courage and compassion." He stood. "All charges are dismissed. Instead, I am recommending each of you for the Terran Star, our highest military honor. You did not just save lives. You changed everything." Relief flooded through Kang. He had been prepared to go to prison. Instead, he was being honored. "However," Seo added, "you are all too stubborn and independent for regular military service. Colonel Kang, effective immediately, you are retired from active combat duty. Your new assignment is to establish and command the 1st Joint Human Velen Defense Force." He turned to Captain Park. "Captain, you are promoted to Admiral. The Indomitable is being rebuilt as a new class of ship, and you will command it. Its new mission is humanitarian intervention and the protection of peaceful species." Jiwon could not believe it. "Sir, the Galactic Council will never allow it." "The Galactic Council," Seo said with a cold smile, "can file a complaint. After what happened here, 15 other peaceful species have contacted Earth requesting mutual defense treaties. The galaxy is changing, Admiral Park. We are helping it change." On Thessia Prime, reconstruction had begun. Velans and humans worked side by side, rebuilding the capital city. Elder Verath had become the voice of a new movement among the Velans. They were still a peaceful people, but now they understood that peace must sometimes be protected with strength. "We will never be warriors like you," Verath told Colonel Kang as they walked through the rebuilding city. "But we can learn to defend ourselves, to stand beside you when others need help." "That is all we ask," Kang said. "We do not want to change who you are. We just want to make sure you survive to be who you are." Monuments went up across the city, statues of human Marines standing beside Velan civilians, memorial walls with the names of those who died. And in the central square, a massive sculpture showed a Terran Marine emerging from smoke, extending a hand to a frightened Velan. The inscription read, "They heard our cry. They came through the smoke. They taught us that hope has a weapon." Yuna officially adopted Silith and 2 other Velan orphans. The paperwork was complicated, the first cross-species adoption in human history. But it went through. Her squad became an extended family for the young Velans, teaching them about human culture while learning about Velan traditions. Taiyang continued his medical work, now focusing on developing treatments that worked for both species. He trained Velan doctors in human techniques while learning Velan medical knowledge. Some of their healing methods were remarkably effective. Hana became a flight instructor for the new Joint Defense Force. She taught both humans and Velans how to fly combat ships. The Velans were natural pilots, their artistic minds able to see flight paths as 3-dimensional art. The Krethax Dominion never recovered from their defeat. Word spread across the galaxy about how a single human battalion had destroyed their invasion force. Other species the Krethax had bullied suddenly found courage to resist. Within a year, the Dominion lost half its territory. War Prime Kalthor lived but in disgrace. He had lost to an enemy he thought was primitive and weak. His warriors whispered that the humans were demons, impossible to defeat. Some even said the humans fought with the strength of gods. They were wrong, of course. Humans were not gods. They were simply human. But sometimes that was enough. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions to discuss the human problem. Some species called for sanctions, others called for isolation, but quietly, many called for alliance. Ambassador Sorahan addressed the council one final time. "You can fear us, or you can work with us. The choice is yours. But know this: humanity will not stand by while innocents die. We will not ignore cries for help. We will not let tyranny go unchallenged. This is who we are. This is who we will always be." "And what if we try to stop you?" asked a council member. Sora smiled. "Then you will fail. Because we already learned the most important lesson. Doing the right thing is more important than being liked. We would rather be good than approved." 5 years later, the Terran-Velan alliance had grown to include 12 species. The phrase "Terran Marines emerged from the smoke" had become famous across the galaxy, shorthand for unexpected salvation. Other peaceful species, when threatened, would send distress calls specifically requesting human assistance. Pirates and raiders learned to avoid any system under Terran protection. Colonel Kang, now truly retired, taught at the Defense Academy on Thessia Prime. His students were young humans and Velans learning to work together. He told them the story of the 3 days, of how 50 Marines held against 10,000 enemies. "Why did we win?" he would ask his classes. The students always had different answers. Better training, superior tactics, luck. "All wrong," Kang would say. "We won because we had something worth protecting. The Krethax fought for glory and conquest. We fought for people who needed us. When you fight for something bigger than yourself, when you fight for others, you find strength you never knew you had." On the anniversary of the battle, veterans gathered at the memorial. Old Marines, now gray-haired and scarred. Young Velans who had been children during the war, now adults. They stood together and remembered those who fell. Una attended with her adopted children, now teenagers. Silith had grown into a confident young woman, studying to become a diplomat. She wanted to build bridges between species, like the bridges built in fire and smoke 5 years ago. "Do you ever regret it?" Silith asked Una. "What you gave up to save us?" Una thought about the career she lost, the wounds she carried, the friends who died. Then she looked at the thriving city, at the Velan children playing in the streets, at the hope that had replaced despair. "Never," she said firmly. "Not for a single second." High above Thessia Prime, the rebuilt Indomitable maintained its eternal watch. Admiral Jiwan Park commanded from her bridge, leading a fleet of humanitarian vessels. They patrolled the space lanes, protecting the weak, answering distress calls, being the shield for those who could not defend themselves. "Admiral, we are receiving a distress call from the Talvin system," reported her communications officer. "Pirates attacking a colony world." Jiwan did not hesitate. "Set course for Talvin, maximum speed. Let's show them why piracy is a bad career choice." As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, she thought about that day 5 years ago when she made the choice to answer a call for help. That choice had changed everything. Her life, her career, her purpose. She had no regrets. In the darkness of space, other species watched the humans with a mixture of fear and awe. They were terrifying in combat, yes. They broke rules and defied expectations. They fought with emotion and rage and love, things that seemed illogical to more advanced civilizations. But they also answered cries for help. They protected the weak. They stood against tyranny. They were willing to sacrifice everything for strangers. The galaxy learned an important lesson from the Battle of Thessia Prime. Humanity was dangerous, not because of their weapons or tactics, but because of their hearts. They cared too much. They felt too deeply. They refused to ignore suffering, and that made them the most powerful force in the galaxy. Years later, when young aliens asked their elders about the humans, they were told the story of Thessia Prime, how a peaceful species faced extinction, how they sent out a desperate call, how the galaxy stayed silent, and how Terran Marines emerged from the smoke. The end.